Where is Elon on immigration?
Situations where people are pouring across the border like it's World War Z. And I'm like, this doesn't seem healthy. It's insane.
Well, it is insane.
Insane. It's like it's racist to require ID, and which is insane. Total bullshit, obviously.
Elon Musk has just dropped a major revelation, but it seems to have flown under the radar, and it's bigger than most realize. He's pointing to a pattern in the waves of migration sweeping across the US and Europe, suggesting it's not a coincidence but part of a larger strategy. This shift could alter the political landscape, not only in the upcoming US elections but across Europe as well. The story here isn't just about immigration. It's about a game plan that could reshape the future of Western nations. Stay with us as we unpack Musk's insights and explore the potential impact on global politics.
And California just passed, which is shocking. It's hard to believe this is even real. But California just passed a law making it illegal to require voter ID in any election at all.
This isn't just about voter protection. It's a calculated move, one that Musk suggests could pave the way for fraud and manipulate election outcomes. The goal? To influence who stays in power and reshape the political future. It's a strategy hidden in plain sight, with deeper implications for democracy than most realize.
You know that?
No.
Yeah, Newsom signed it into law last week.
It's illegal to require an ID.
In any election, even a town council. And a friend of mine who lives in Palo Alto was like, is this actually real? And he went to vote in some city council election. He tried to show them his ID, and they said, we're not even allowed to look at your ID.
Have they extended the same?
Actually what's going on right now.
But
by the way, they're proud of it. They're not hiding it.
But it's only voting. It's not buying a gun or buying liquor or buying a pack of cigarettes or flying on an airplane or renting a hotel room. It's only voting that it's illegal to do.
Oh, if you try to buy a gun, they're going to ID you 6 ways to Sunday. Yeah, California's trying to make it basically illegal to own a gun. And the same people that demanded vaccine IDs if you want to travel or do anything are the same ones who say no voter ID is required.
Is there any reason
Obviously hypocritical.
to pass a law like that except to abet voter fraud?
It's so that fraud cannot be proven. So it enables large-scale fraud and no way to prove it, because how would you prove it? It's literally impossible. No ID. You're not even allowed to show your ID. It's insane.
Well, it is insane.
Insane. So, yeah. The purpose of no voter ID is obviously to conduct fraud in elections. Obviously.
There can be no other explanation.
They come up with some nice-sounding thing.
People don't have IDs. Could you live in this country without an ID?
Yeah, their common rebuttal is it's racist to require ID. And which is insane. I think it's actually racist and patronizing to say that people can't figure out how to get ID. Obviously.
But how could you live here without an ID? I don't think it's even possible.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
Yeah.
You need ID for everything. The list of the things you need ID for is basically everything, except voting.
So you see the rest of the country.
It's total bullshit, obviously.
Obviously.
Yes.
But that doesn't in any way minimize the aggression or self-righteousness they bring to this conversation.
Yes.
You're a racist if you want that.
Right. Where's that? In fact, obviously, someone is racist if they say that people of a particular race cannot get ID. That's patronizing and racist. That's absurd.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like when the governor of New York said people in the ghetto don't know how to use computers or something like that. I'm super out of touch.
This isn't just happening in California. It's part of a larger global agenda. According to Musk, mass immigration is being encouraged to build a loyal voting base, ensuring that political elites stay in control. The goal? To shift democracies into oligarchies, where a handful of powerful individuals make decisions for everyone else. And this isn't just an American issue. Europe is facing the same trend. Since 2020, millions of migrants have entered the continent. In 2022 alone, Germany admitted 1.4 million migrants, while the UK accepted 1.2 million. What we're seeing is an orchestrated demographic shift across Western nations, and Musk is sounding the alarm. This isn't something the elites are merely allowing, they're actively driving it. The ripple effects are spreading across the Western world, from elections to public policy. Former President Donald Trump has long warned that the current immigration crisis isn't just a policy failure, it's a deliberate act of sabotage. Millions of illegal immigrants, including criminals and drug traffickers, are pouring into the U.S., and it's no coincidence. This is part of a carefully managed plan, and its consequences are unfolding right before our eyes.
Much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels.
The reason is simple: chaos and disorder. Immigration is being used as a tool to weaken the foundations of entire nations. With the 2024 elections approaching, it's evident that Republicans were warning about this long before it exploded into today's crisis. They've consistently criticized the Biden administration for its lax border policies, which had opened the floodgates for millions of illegal immigrants. Trump, once ridiculed for his strict stance on immigration, no longer seems extreme. What he predicted has now become reality. Naomi Wolf, a well-known critic of globalist policies, argues that mass illegal immigration isn't just an accident. It's a strategy designed to dismantle both cultural identity and democratic institutions across Western nations. This isn't mismanagement, it's an intentional push toward a stabilization with profound consequences for the future.
We are, I think, seeing now with both the Ukraine-Russia conflict and escalating events in the Middle East, the potential for dissent and the difficulty in creating a sense of broad domestic support for those kind of conflicts. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think it's becoming harder for America to be involved in wars that don't directly affect American people?
People are seeing in Western Europe and in the United States the impact of the globalist effort to shatter our cultures with mass illegal immigration from many places around the world that don't have a memory or a history of democracy, women's equality, and civil rights. And I am the daughter of an immigrant, granddaughter of immigrants. I believe in legal immigration. This is not a racist thing I'm saying, but you can't have a democracy with open borders. You can't have a democracy in which non-citizens, flood into the country against the laws. You can't. It's not possible by definition. And you can't have a culture if the people are coming in from so many different places so quickly that they can't get acculturated to what it means to be American or what it means to be British or what it means to be French. And that is, again, not a racist thing to say. Cultures are precious. Right? And Western cultures are also precious. I'm not saying they're, better in every way than every other culture, but liberty, democracy, human rights, these took centuries to develop as a social consensus in the West. And intentionally, the globalists are flooding my country and your country with people from Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, no history or memory of democracy. And these injections are killing and disabling the people who do have those memories, so that, as Ed Dowd says, who's bringing forth these data sets of people being disabled and dying, wait 5 years. And you're going to have a completely different demographic with a different institutional memory in Western Europe and North America, in which the globalists can just roll out their neo-feudalism because the people who remember democracy, freedom of speech, human rights, women's rights, equality, accountability, transparency will be gone or too sick to fight. All right, so in America, what this goes to is nationalism, right? And in Western Europe as well. We've been taught, especially people like you and me who've lived on the adorable left, we've been taught that nationalism is a dirty word and that you shouldn't love your country and you shouldn't say, being British is great or being American is great. But that was a trick. Nationalism can be very, very beautiful. It can also be turned to negative ends, of course, like anything. But there is a resurgence of patriotism and nationalism in America. And our founding fathers did say, don't get enmeshed in foreign wars. Take care of yourselves first. Don't become the world's police, essentially. So absolutely, we're looking in the US at 12 to 16 million people having illegally come in over our borders. They're mostly fighting age men. They're mostly being positioned in staging areas around the country in group housing, given every kind of support and benefit. And we're really worried about this being a military operation, right? And same thing is happening in Western Europe. And we're looking at our veterans waiting 6 months to get an appointment for PTSD. We're looking at our own kids having pathetic educational opportunities, joblessness. And we're really thinking, okay, enough of this. I mean, that's why Trump is doing so well. We're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to close our borders. We're going to look after our own people. It's not our war, right? We have our own war to fight at home. And I think that's happening in Western Europe as well. And it's the rise of the right-wing parties. But if the alternative to the right-wing parties is kind of the EU suspending all of your autonomy and rights as subject people with no accountability, which it turns out is what the EU is all about. Unelected diplomats deciding what happens in your country, and you get no say in your community, no say, no real democracy at all. I'm not surprised that right-wing nationalist entities are rising up, and a lot of them are making a lot of sense.
In the last decade, Europe has seen the arrival of millions of migrants, both legally and illegally. This massive influx is overwhelming public services, eroding cultural identity, and destabilizing countries that were once the heart of democratic values. But make no mistake, this isn't a spontaneous development. It's a deliberate strategy. Imagine a future where elections are mere theater, with the outcome preordained, not by the people's choice, but by demographic engineering orchestrated by elites. We're already seeing this play out in states like California and New York, where shifting populations have cemented one-party control. If nothing changes, the 2024 election may be the last opportunity for real political competition. Without immediate action, democracy could be replaced by a system where power is permanently consolidated in the hands of a few, and voters become little more than a formality in a game they no longer control.
You see the other 49 states becoming California if the machine wins?
Well, you don't need all 49 to go that way. You just need enough to have the election, have there not be swing states. I mean, there are only 6 swing states.
Yep.
So there are only 6 states out of 50 right now that are in contention. So if those 6 states that are in contention by narrow margins are no longer in contention, then the only contest will be for who wins the Democratic primary. That's how it is in California. That's how it is in New York. There's no party versus party situation. The only contest is who wins the Democratic primary. And as we've seen with the appointment of Kamala, who no one voted for, even in the Democratic primary.
Yes.
Where's the democracy here?
Well, it's easier though.
I mean, it's just that the Dem Party elite just decides
Yes.
who is in charge. That's a tiny oligarchy, basically.
Comprised of
And that's not democracy.
the richest people in the country. That's kind of the interesting part to me, is that the richest people in the country are on board with this. I mean, that's what it is. It's a collection of billionaires.
Well,
right?
most of them are, yeah.
But you're not.
Not me, and not everyone is. I think there's, but it is a shocking number of so-called billionaires are in the Dem camp, more than are in the Republican camp.
Oh, for sure.
Which is wild. So in fact, the astonishing thing in the swing states is that they're even a contest, given that the Dems have far more money than the Republicans. So the Kamala campaign dramatically outspends the Trump campaign in the swing states. The media is overwhelmingly pro-Democrat. So you've got, the press, is a Dem cheering squad, so. And then you've got also almost all the Hollywood and entertainment, the celebrities, also, endorsing Kamala and being pro-Dem. So you got the celebrities, they got the money, they got basically everything on the side of the Dems. The Republicans are the underdog here. Trump's the underdog in swing states, and still it's a contentious. It's still a 50-50. After all that,
What does that tell you?
it tells me that if people actually knew what was going on, they weren't being fed nonstop propaganda, it would be a landslide in favor of Republicans.
On the other side of the Atlantic, Europe is confronting a similar predicament. The European Union is not just allowing but actively encouraging immigration, leaving countries like Germany and France struggling to keep pace with the rapid changes. The surge in support for far-right movements isn't fueled by extremism. It stems from their willingness to tackle this crisis head-on. Despite this, mainstream media continues to paint these groups as the villains, overlooking the genuine threat posed by mass migration, the gradual erosion of national sovereignty. The real issue at stake isn't about prejudice. It's about maintaining the right to self-determination. Yet, those voicing these concerns are often marginalized, leaving nations vulnerable to the upheaval that comes from unchecked demographic shifts.
Controversial subject, isn't it, on online spaces, replacement theory, and yet further to observe that these are mostly males, which is a sort of something that people have commonly observed about immigration. And I suppose the more neutral, shall we say, if you can even use a word like neutral now, take on that would be, well, those are the people that would come looking for opportunities for work.
It's not true.
Go on.
People who say, it's normal to have military-age men with military haircuts, whose clothing all seem to come from the same place, who all have the physique of soldiers, pour into your country and mine. That is not normal. Again, I've read a ton of history. I know the history of my own family's waves of immigration to the United States. And I've been in conflict areas and refugee camps around the world, and I've seen refugees. They don't look like this. They come in families, or like my grandpa, they wait 6 years and work to bring their families in legally so that they can be Americans or British or whatever it is they want to be. If you look at people pouring in, I'll stick to my country because I haven't looked at the streams of immigrants into Britain or Western Europe as carefully, but in our country, the people who are flowing in, there are no disabled people. There are no elders, like none, right? There are pretty much no babies. There are childbearing age women. Everyone's very fit. They don't carry luggage. They are having, and I did original reporting on this and broke this story. There's a 3-country staging area south of the United States that the combination of the UN and our own State Department has put together to solicit, support, feed, shepherd, ferry, transition, and then bus and fly these millions of people of military age and military demeanor to certain incredibly sensitive areas around the country. O'Hare Airport in Chicago, Boston Logan in Boston, and then to house them, which has never happened before in the history of U.S. immigration. Not my grandparents, not my dad. Never did the government give anyone from anywhere, let alone descendants of enslaved people in our country, free group housing in barracks-type accommodations. And that's what you're seeing in the United States. And again, my husband is a former military intelligence, and he points out that these newcomers march in cadence, and they stand at parade rest, and there seems to be like officers from whom they're taking direction if you analyze the videos of people coming in. So it's incredibly concerning, because if it's the UN doing it, which it is, and the State Department, then what you've got is, again, reasoning backward, reasoning backward, it looks like an invasion, right? Reasoning backward, if like, look at what happened on October 7th. What happened on October 7th in Israel is that a handful of terrorists crossed the southern border and brought a whole country to its knees, changed the outcome of Middle East history, took hostages in a heartbeat, and provoked a terrible, terrible loss of life in Gaza. And there's conflict in the area again. Well, imagine what could happen in Britain or in America in a heartbeat if of these 19 million people, 12 to 19 million people, if a handful are terrorists or a handful are military. And J.J. Carroll, my husband Brian O'Shea's co-host for his podcast about this, is a former border agent. He says that terrorist-aligned individuals who used to be interrogated by the FBI and deported are just being waved through and strategically positioned around the country. Well, at a signal, these people could create a mass hostage situation that could bring America to its knees or Britain to its knees. So it's a catastrophic national security threat. And there is, I've been to countries where there's militias and cartels and no rule of law. And that's what we're seeing in America right now. The police are being told to stand down. The newcomers are being encouraged to become police. They're being encouraged to become healthcare workers. And so what you're getting is what we do in other countries, which is the creation of a class of people who have no allegiance to the United States, who are not citizens, who broke the law to get here, who are being promoted and empowered above the level of Americans, given arms, given authority, who are basically creating a fifth column from within, bit by bit by bit to subjugate our country. We're going to be hard to subjugate because we're armed, but Britain and Western Europe are not going to be hard to subjugate because you don't have arms. You don't even have representation.
With an estimated 12 to 16 million illegal immigrants already in the U.S., many positioned in critical states, the risk of destabilization is significant. Naomi Wolf emphasizes that democracy and open borders cannot coexist, and that's precisely what global elites are counting on. The reality is undeniable. Mass immigration is not a mere coincidence. It's a strategic initiative by those in power to undermine democratic systems and forge societies they can control. The numbers are telling. Over 385,000 illegal immigrants entered Europe in 2023, alongside millions in the US, yet mainstream media largely ignores this growing crisis. Fortunately, people worldwide are beginning to wake up. Right-wing movements are gaining traction as nations fight to reclaim their sovereignty. This is a critical struggle. The elites, who seek to tighten their grip on power, versus ordinary citizens who demand their freedom. As we head into the 2024 US elections and Europe grapples with its own immigration challenges, the stakes have never been higher. It's crucial to spread this message. If this video has shed light on these issues, share it widely before it's too late. Like, subscribe, and stand with us in the fight to reclaim our nations before they're lost forever.